Welcome to Spotlight Matthew today as we continue to look at Jesus' Olivet Discourse, or his end times speech and teaching in the training of the 12 and training of us, found in chapters 24 and 25 of the Gospel of Matthew. And as we saw in our last devotional study in verses 4 through 14, Jesus is focusing on what life will be like in the prophetic foreground, the first fulfillment with the destruction of the temple of the temple in Jerusalem. And Jesus talks about what to expect in that period of time. And it also applies to the church age as well. General things that we should anticipate so that we will not be led astray, so that we will persevere, and so that we will proclaim the gospel to all nations. But what we find in our next section, verses 15 through 28, is that Jesus moves from these general fulfillments to specific things that would anticipate the destruction of the temple in the prophetic foreground, and then specific things that will anticipate the return of Christ and the end of the age. So we're going to find, as you listen to this passage, verses 15 through 20 are telling us about that first fulfillment in the foreground, and then verses 21 through 28, Jesus moves to the prophetic background, or the second fulfillment, when he returns again. So let's listen to our passage today from Matthew 24, 15 through 28. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down and take what is in his house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been seen since the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Christ," or "There he is," do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect of God. See, I have told you this beforehand. So, if they say to you, "Look, he is in the wilderness," do not go out. And if they say, "Look, he is in the inner rooms," do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. And wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Wow. Okay, let's look first at the apocalypse past, which is that prophetic foreground, the first fulfillment with regard to the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, verses 15 through 20. Jesus talks about the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. And indeed, we can see historically that this will be fulfilled when Titus comes into the temple and destroys it piece by piece, not one stone upon another. That prophecy again of Jesus in verse 3 is fulfilled. And it is an abomination, to be sure, that he desecrates the temple of God. And he makes it desolate, so desolate that it doesn't even exist anymore. So there is that initial abomination of desolation that is fulfilled in that thoroughgoing destruction of the Jerusalem temple and the raping and pillaging of Jerusalem itself. As we've already said, the Jewish historian Josephus estimates 100,000 led away in captivity, and somewhere on the level of 1 million Jews slaughtered in the city of Jerusalem. And surely this piece has to do with fulfillment in the time of the destruction of the temple, because Jesus says, when you see that this is going to be occurring, when the Romans are marching through the promised land through Palestine. Do not go to the city. Do not hide out in Jerusalem. That will prove death to you. Rather, flee the city. Run for the hills, if you will. Don't even go back and take your cloak. Don't try to gather up your household things. And women who are pregnant, woe for you, for your journey will be difficult. Make it anyway, but do not stay in the holy city, because the time of judgment has arrived. Interesting historical footnote. The Church of Christ listened to Jesus with regard to this first fulfillment, and they did flee from Jerusalem to Pella, a city across the Jordan River, and were safe. They were out before the Roman destruction came. Good simple application there is when Jesus tells you to do something, you do it. The only safe place to be is where Jesus tells you to be, even if it seems counterintuitive. Everybody else thought, we'll be safe behind those thick walls of Jerusalem. We'll be safe because the Holy Temple. We'll be safe because God is there and he wouldn't let us be destroyed. Wrong. No. There were caravans of people coming to Jerusalem to face their death, and little did they know it, while the Christian church's caravan was fleeing from Jerusalem to the place of safety, safe within obedience to the will of God and the word of Jesus Christ. Well, that's the prophetic foreground. That's the apocalypse past. What about the apocalypse future? Verses 21 and follow. Jesus says that there will be tribulation at the very end, of a magnitude that the world has never seen and will never see. And it is such a tribulation that the elect, if possible, will be deceived. You see, speaking of the elect, the first part's talking about Jerusalem and the temple and Judea. This is talking about the elect, the people of God, the church of Jesus Christ. And Jesus says that God will even cut short the days of that mighty tribulation at the end of time before the coming of Christ for the sake of his elect people. And the thing I don't want us to miss here is that once again, the thing that Jesus seems to be really focused on here is that there will be false teachers and false messages, concentrated even more so than in the general church age at the end of the age before his coming. And Jesus once again is urging you and urging me, do not be led astray. If somebody says that Jesus is the prophet, the word of God is out in the wilderness, don't even go out there. Or if somebody says, oh, you're going to get this insider information that's going to make all the difference in the inner room, you got to hear this guy teaching in the inner. Jesus says, no, don't buy into it. There will not be another Christ. There will not be another word from God. There will not be another Messiah. The next thing you can expect from me is my coming again. As the lightning flashes from the east to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So Jesus, who is the Son of Man of Daniel chapter 7, so he will come from the Ancient of Days to bring forth the end of all things. That's the next thing that you should anticipate from Jesus in his ministry. Until then, he will sit at the right hand of the Father to intercede for us as his people. That's all we need to hang on to. So there we have a look of Jesus' teaching of what will happen right before the destruction of the temple, apocalypse past, and what we can anticipate right before he comes again at the end of all things. So let's continue to walk with Jesus as he teaches us this final block of information for the training of the 12 and the teaching of his people, you and me, today. Like us on Facebook, share us with others, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.